These works are from a series of 16 cold works made from glass. They are symbolizing the process of the melting glacier that happens through global warming and melting ice and pressure. And these blocks of ice are usually floating in glacier lakes. That is really a very magic view when you see them. These works are not molded like the works I did in Murano. These are very large pieces of glass that I was able to recuperate and then chisel them into the shapes the way they were in my glacier lake and the way they resemble in nature. What is very interesting in the nature, the melting of the glaciers it's not silent, it's really a loud process followed by very quiet moment. And when a glacier breaks, or even a medium-sized piece of ice breaks, it creates a noise that is significant and quite haunting. We visited many glaciers and glacier lakes, and when you see these pieces, there is a very eerie beauty about them. Also, they remind me in many ways about crystals, and they have an incredible play of light. Then when they're in the water, depending on the depth, when the water is not very deep, you have the reflection of the ground, of the sun, and of the ice wall, and it really is something very, very magic and very beautiful to watch, and more frequent, not just in Glacier Lake, but in the Arctic, in the north area of Spitsbergen, and in the Antarctica, where you have these gigantic masses that are breaking in pieces, and alongside you have the drift ice, like driftwood, and these ice blocks vary in sizes. Like here are bigger sizes, and this is a smaller size. At this size they almost float on the water surface. But this is a process almost like cutting stone, although very, very different in the material. It's also, you have to be very careful because they can break into very small pieces and you can cut yourself. So the big part for me was, because these are pieces that are exhibition pieces, that you can touch them without you cutting yourself. So I take chisels, hammer, and I basically create these shapes that I want them to take, and often nature helps me a little bit. One might break at a certain point, or I lose one if I hit the wrong spot. It's really a very tedious work, and then the finishing I do with sandpaper, and the shapes are, they become very, very organic shapes. unlike the works that I did in Murano, so there I basically create a mold from a existing stone sculpture that I make in granite or marble or any stone that I'm working with, mostly granite. Granite is very hard, so I create the shape. From the shape we take a mold, and then the glass is poured with residue and segments into those molds, and then they're broken, and then you have the sculpture. These are taken from big blocks of glass and cut and scraped and worked on until they have a shape where the light takes it beautifully and you can touch them and you envision them, how they're positioned. One series is in a collector's house that's also friends of ours in a very big garden, and it's a platform they created, and like from morning to the evening the dynamic and the lighting in the pieces changes drastically, and it's a very beautiful, they're very beautiful works to watch. I think it's something not everybody experiences, not everybody has been to an iceberg or has seen a large piece of ice broken, or many people have never visited a glacier or a mountain lake. And so I think these works, they're able to tell a story, and they communicate with the viewer and the collectors what is really happening in nature. It's also an interesting process because it's almost like mountain crystals. There are certain mountain crystals that you find in South America, few in Switzerland, that have a very large size. They're made under enormous pressure, like diamonds, but when they're taken out of the stone, they look very similar. They're maybe more pointy. There is more geometry inside. You have it taken a little bit here, but they are very similar when you look at them from a distance. Well, I always try to simulate nature because often when you have, I just watched a film before I'm talking about these pieces floating in nature. Often they float in groups, and sometimes they get together, they build a bigger lump, and then with the current or the wind, they drift apart. And then when they melt, the small ones, they almost dance on the water surface. So I try to simulate very much what I see in nature, and also when I place the works, I have a certain amount of space. I try to recreate either from documents that I have, photographs or films. I try to recreate these elements the way I remember them and how, when they really touch me. Well, I think we have incredible shifts of the earth, and even we have driftwood We have enormous releases of stones and wood through by deforestation, and they often slide into the glacier lakes, or they're transported by the glaciers. They're then buried in the ice, and when the ice melts, they become driftwood or ice that is drifting on the surface. I feel the weather patterns are more extreme, and I just read yesterday how more powerful the jet stream has become. That means the ice that is north and south is traveling faster into the oceans. So we have very big pieces of icebergs that are moving at very high speeds into areas that they have never been, and often you have animals that take refuge on these pieces, and a lot of times they're penguins. They end up very, very far away from their habitat. But it's our weather patterns have become more and more extreme. We have cities like New York and Miami. We don't know in 20 years how it's going to be, whether they're going to be completely flooded. So all this together becomes not a silent reminder anymore, a very strong reminder of climate change, and also it inspires us to create other works alongside.